Hello, my name is Sam. I am a student of English. This is my story. I want to tell you about how I learned to practice speaking. I want to tell you about my teacher, my mistakes, and my small steps. You can read my story and learn English with me. You can listen, read, and repeat. You can feel my journey in every word. Welcome to my channel, Bookish English 2. It was a cool morning in London. The sky was gray, but I was happy. I was walking to my English school. I had my notebook in my bag, but I didn't plan to use it much. My teacher always said, "Sam, don't study English. Use English." I liked this idea. I wanted to use English. I wanted to speak it, but I was still shy. My mouth felt strange when I tried to speak. My words came out slowly. I was scared of mistakes. I wanted to speak perfectly, but my teacher said something that changed my thinking. She said, "Sam, speaking is not about being perfect. It's about being brave." That sentence stayed in my heart. When I reached the classroom, my teacher smiled at me. She said, "Good morning, Sam. Today we will do something special." I was curious. There were students from many countries: Japan, Brazil, Italy, and Spain. Everyone was friendly. We sat in a circle. The teacher said, "Today we will practice speaking for the whole lesson. No writing, no grammar, no translation. Just speaking." Everyone looked a little nervous. I was nervous too, but I was also excited. Our teacher said, "Speaking is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. If you don't speak, it stays weak. So today, we will make our speaking muscles strong." She told us to look at the person sitting next to us. My partner was a boy from Brazil named Leo. He smiled. The teacher said, "You will ask and answer questions. Don't think too much, just speak." Leo asked me, "What did you do yesterday?" I said slowly, "No, I went to the park. I walked. I listened to English songs." Leo nodded. He said, "Good. I also like music." Then he asked, "Which song?" I thought for a moment and said, "Shape of You." Leo laughed. "Me too," he said. We both laughed, and I felt something change inside me. I was speaking. I was not perfect, but I was speaking. After a few minutes, our teacher stopped us and said, "See? You are all speaking. You are learning English with your voice, not your pen. This is how real learning happens." I felt proud. For the first time, I was not afraid. I wanted to speak more. Then our teacher gave us a challenge. She said, "Now we will do a speaking game. I call it Speak for 1 minute." She pointed to me first. "Sam, your topic is morning routines. You have to speak for 1 minute without stopping." I was scared again. 1 minute felt long, but she said, "Don't worry about mistakes. Keep speaking." So I took a deep breath and started. I wake up early. I drink coffee. I take shower. I listen to English. I go to school. I stopped for a second. Then she said, "Keep going." So I continued. I meet my friends. I speak English. I like London. When she said, "Stop," everyone clapped. I smiled. I had done it. I spoke for 1 full minute. After class, I stayed behind to talk to the teacher. I asked her, "How can I practice speaking when I'm alone?" She said, "That's a very good question, Sam. You can do many things. You can speak to yourself in English. You can describe what you see. For example, when you walk in the park, you can say aloud, 'I see trees. I see birds. I like this weather.' This is called thinking aloud. You can also shadow English videos. Listen and repeat what people say. Copy their voice, their rhythm, their emotion. These small things will help you more than grammar books." I wrote her advice in my notebook that night. Speak to yourself. Describe your world. Shadow native speakers. I read it again and again. Then I stood in front of my mirror and tried to do it. I said, "Hello, my name is Sam. I am learning English. I can speak English." I felt strange at first, but slowly I became comfortable. I walked around my room and said simple things like, "I am holding a pen. I am wearing a blue shirt. I am happy." It was funny, but I liked it. My brain started to think in English. The next morning, I decided to continue. When I made breakfast, I spoke aloud. "Now I am making eggs. The eggs look nice. I am eating breakfast. I like coffee." My voice was quiet, but it was English. I felt proud. I started doing this every day, when walking, cooking, cleaning, or waiting for the bus. I was speaking English to myself. Slowly, it became natural. I didn't need to translate in my head anymore. One day, I met an old lady at the bus stop. She smiled and said, "Cold day, isn't it?" I smiled and answered, "Yes, it's cold but nice." She said, "You speak English very well. Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Pakistan. I am learning English." She said, "Oh, that's lovely. Keep practicing." I thanked her. That short conversation made my day. I realized I could speak with real people now. I didn't feel shy anymore. When I went to class again, my teacher asked, "Sam, how was your speaking practice this week?" I told her about talking to myself and the old lady. She said, "That's wonderful, Sam. Every small talk makes you stronger. Remember, the more you speak, the faster you learn. Don't wait for perfect English. Speak with what you have." That night, I watched videos from Bookish English 2 and shadowed the speaker's voice. I repeated after every line. "How are you today?" "I am fine, thank you." "What did you do yesterday?" "I went to the park." I copied the rhythm and sound. I spoke louder, clearer, and faster. I felt like I was training my tongue and my brain together. Days passed. My confidence grew. I started to speak more in class. I asked questions. I answered without fear. When I made mistakes, I laughed. My teacher smiled and said, "Good, Sam. Mistakes mean progress." Speaking English became a part of my daily life. I didn't study it. I lived it. When you want to practice speaking, don't wait for the right time. Speak now. Speak with people. Speak with yourself. Speak in your heart. The next week started with sunshine. I walked to school with a big smile. I was no longer afraid to speak. I knew my English was still simple, but I didn't care. I wanted to use it. I wanted to speak. When I entered the classroom, my teacher said, "Good morning, everyone. Today, we will talk about speaking in real life." I like the sound of that. Real life. That was where I wanted to use my English the most. The teacher said, "You can speak in the classroom, but that's only the beginning. Real learning happens outside. You must speak English every day, even when you're not here. You can talk to shopkeepers, to waiters, to your friends, even to yourself. Every word helps." Then she looked at me and said, "Sam, can you tell the class how you practice speaking?" I stood up and said, "I speak to myself. I talk about what I see. I shadow videos, and I speak to people when I can." The teacher smiled. "Excellent, Sam. This is how you grow. You use English in your daily life." Then she said, "Today we'll go outside and speak to people." Everyone looked surprised. "Outside?" asked Leo. The teacher laughed and said, "Yes, outside. We are going to the market. You will talk to people there. You will ask questions in English." I felt nervous again, but also excited. We walked together to a small market near the school. There were many people, many sounds, and many smells. The teacher said, "You will each choose one person and ask simple questions. Say hello. Ask about prices, food, weather, anything. Don't worry about mistakes. I will be here." I walked to a fruit stall. A man was arranging apples. I said softly, "Hello." He looked up and smiled. "Hello, mate. How are you?" I said, "I am fine." "These apples look nice." He said, "Yes, they are fresh." "Do you want some?" I said, "Maybe later." "How much are they?" He said, £2 for 1 kilo. I said, "Okay, thank you." He smiled again and said, "No problem." "You're learning English?" I said, "Yes, I am a student." He said, "Good for you. Keep going." I walked back to my teacher. She said, "See, Sam? You just had a real English conversation. You spoke naturally. You were polite and confident. That's how you learn." I felt so proud. After the market, we all sat in a small park. Everyone shared their experience. Some students said people were friendly. Some said they were shy. But everyone spoke English. Our teacher said, "This is how you become fluent. You use English in the world. You don't wait for perfect grammar. You just speak." When I went home that day, I decided to practice more. I talked to myself again. I said, "Today I went to the market. I spoke English. The man was kind. I feel happy I spoke slowly but clearly. I listened to my own voice. It was not perfect, but it was English." Later that night, I called my friend Amir back home. He asked me, "How is London?" I said, "London is beautiful. I am learning English every day." He said, "You sound better now." I laughed. "Yes, I speak more now. I speak to people. I speak to myself." He said, "That sounds funny." I said, "Yes, it's funny, but it works." The next day I told my teacher about my call. She said, That's great, Sam. You are not only practicing English in class, you are using it in life. This is how you build fluency. You must make English your daily habit. Then she gave us homework. Your homework, she said, is to speak English for 10 minutes every day. You can talk about your day, your plans, your dreams, anything. Speak aloud. Don't write. Don't read. Just speak. I liked this kind of homework. That evening I sat on my bed and spoke aloud. Today I went to school. I spoke to people in the market. I felt shy but happy. I want to speak better. Every day I spoke for about 10 minutes. I didn't count the mistakes. I just kept speaking. When I finished, I felt good. I felt free. After 1 week, my speaking improved. I could speak longer sentences. I could answer faster. My mind didn't translate from Urdu to English anymore. Words came more easily. My teacher noticed it too. She said, "Sam, your speaking is smoother now. You think in English. Keep going." That was one of the happiest moments of my journey. On Friday, our class had a speaking activity. We had to work in pairs and tell a short story. My partner was Monica, the student from Italy. She spoke very well, and I liked her confidence. She said, "Let's talk about our first day in London." I said, "Okay, I will start." Then I told her about my train ride, the people I met, and my first English conversation. She listened carefully and said, "You speak better than before." "You are improving fast," I said. "Thank you." "I practice every day." She smiled and said, "That's the secret." Daily practice. After class, Monica told me more about how she practiced speaking. She said, "When I walk alone, I describe everything in English. I say, the street is busy, the cars are fast, the sun is warm. I do this every day. It helps a lot." I said, "I do the same now. It really helps." We laughed. Every day I saw a little progress. I could order coffee, talk to classmates, and even joke a little. I was not perfect, but I was alive in English. I was no longer afraid of mistakes. I understood what my teacher meant when she said, "Fluency is not about perfection. It's about expression." On Sunday, I went to a small cafe near my school. I wanted to practice again. I said to the waiter, "Good morning. Can I have a cappuccino, please?" He said, "Sure. Would you like sugar?" I said, "No, thank you." Then he asked, "Are you from here?" I said, "No, I am from Pakistan. I am learning English." He smiled and said, "Your English is very good." I felt happy again. That night I wrote in my journal, "Speaking English is becoming fun. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to speak." Every small conversation is a step forward. I looked in the mirror again and said aloud, "I am proud of myself." Then I laughed softly. When you want to practice speaking, don't hide. Speak in small moments. Speak when you order coffee. Speak when you buy fruit. Speak when you are alone. Speak to grow. The next Monday, I woke up early. The sun was soft through my window, and I felt ready for a new week. I looked in the mirror and said quietly, "Good morning, Sam." You will speak English today, I smiled. It became my small morning habit, talking to myself in English before I started my day. I didn't need grammar books. I just needed my voice. I made my breakfast and said aloud, "Now I am making tea." I like tea. It smells nice. I laughed a little, but it made me happy. When I arrived at school, my teacher said, "Today we will talk about how to speak naturally." Everyone looked interested. She said, "Many students know grammar and words, but they don't sound natural. They think too much before speaking. They stop and translate in their head. That is why they speak slowly. To speak naturally, you must stop thinking in your first language." She wrote on the board, "Think in English." Then she said, "You can train your brain to think in English. You don't have to use big sentences. You can use small ones. For example, when you wake up, don't think main uth gaya hun and then translate it. Just say in English, 'I wake up.' Keep your thoughts simple and in English. That's the secret." I listened carefully. Then she asked us to practice. She said, "Close your eyes. Imagine your morning. Now say it in English." I closed my eyes and said softly, "I open my eyes. I stretch. I smile. I get up. I wash my face. I make breakfast. I drink tea." My voice was quiet, but it felt good. I wasn't translating. I was thinking in English. After class, I walked to the park. I sat on a bench and looked at people walking by. I decided to practice what the teacher said. I spoke in my mind. "That man is walking fast. That woman is reading a book. The child is laughing." I kept going. Then I whispered the sentences. It was like a small game. My thoughts were in English now. It made me feel confident. Later that day, I met Monica again near the school gate. She said, "Hi, Sam. How's your English practice?" I said, "It's going well. I talk to myself every day." She smiled. "Good. I do it too. It becomes easier after some time." "Your brain gets used to it?" I said, "Yes, it feels like English is living in my head now." She laughed. "That's a good sign." We walked together to a cafe. She ordered coffee and I ordered tea. She said, "Do you want to practice speaking together?" I said, "Yes, of course." She asked, "What did you do this weekend?" I said, "I went to the park. I watched people. I spoke to myself." She laughed. "You spoke to yourself?" I said, "Yes, I practiced speaking." Then she said, "That's great. I do it too, but sometimes I record myself. It helps me hear my mistakes." I said, "That's a good idea. I will try that." That evening, I took her advice. I sat in my room, took my phone, and started recording. I said, "Hello, my name is Sam. I am practicing speaking English. Today I went to the cafe with my friend. We talked about English. I spoke for 2 minutes and then listened to my recording. I sounded slow, but I could understand myself. I noticed where I stopped and where I needed to improve. It was strange to hear my own voice, but it helped a lot. I did it every night after that. After a few days, my teacher said, We will now practice group conversations. She divided us into small groups. My group had me, Leo, and Monica. The teacher said, "You will talk about travel. Speak for 10 minutes. Don't stop." We started. Leo said, "I like to travel by train." Monica said, "I prefer flying." Then they looked at me. I said, "I like traveling by bus because I can look at the scenery." I paused, but Monica smiled and said, "Nice sentence, Sam." I continued, "I want to travel to Scotland one day." Leo said, "Yes, it's beautiful." We spoke for 10 minutes, and when we finished, the teacher said, "Good job, everyone. You spoke without fear. That's what I want." After class, the teacher called me and said, "Sam, your speaking has improved a lot. You are more confident now." "Do you know why?" I said, "Because I practice every day?" She nodded. "Yes, and because you enjoy it. When you enjoy speaking, learning becomes natural." "Keep that joy alive," I smiled and said, "I will." That night, I watched a video on Bookish English 2. It was about small talk. The speaker said, "Small talk helps you connect with people. You don't need deep topics. Just start with something simple like the weather or food." I paused the video and repeated the sentences. "Nice weather today, isn't it?" "Yes, it's beautiful." "Do you like tea?" "Yes, I love it." I shadowed the voice again and again. It became easier each time. The next morning, I decided to try small talk in real life. I went to the bakery near my house. The man at the counter said, "Good morning." I smiled and said, "Good morning." "The weather is nice today," he said. "Yes, finally some sunshine." I said, "Yes, it's beautiful." He smiled and said, "Would you like your usual bread?" I said, "Yes, please." When I walked out, I felt proud. I had done small talk in English. I told my teacher about it later, and she said, "That's wonderful, Sam. Small talk is simple, but it builds real confidence. It makes English a part of your daily life." "Keep doing that," I said. "I will, teacher." In the evening, I sat by my window and looked at the London lights. I thought about my first day when I was too shy to speak. I smiled and whispered, "Now I can speak. I can talk to people. I can express my ideas. I can live in English." I felt calm and happy. Then I took my phone again and started recording. I said, "Today I spoke English many times. I talked about weather. I spoke with my friends. I am learning every day." I listened to my voice again. It sounded better now. My words were clearer. My pauses were shorter. My English was growing like a small plant, slowly but beautifully. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Speaking is not about being perfect. It's about being brave, consistent, and patient. You must speak even when you are afraid. You must speak even when you make mistakes. You must speak every day. When you want to speak better, don't wait for the right moment. Every moment is right. Speak now." The next morning, I woke up with a new idea. I wanted to practice English while walking. I had heard someone say, "When your body moves, your brain learns faster. So I decided to try it. I put on my headphones, played an English podcast, and went outside. The air was cool and fresh. As I walked, I listened to the sentences, and then I repeated them quietly. Good morning. How are you today? I'm fine, thank you. What are you doing? I'm going to the park. I kept repeating, again and again. People walked past me, but I didn't care. I felt free. I was learning and moving at the same time. When I reached the park, I sat under a tree. I closed my eyes and said softly, I am sitting under a tree. The air is fresh. The birds are singing. I imagined I was talking to a friend. I made questions and answered them myself. What do you see, Sam? I see children playing. What do you hear, Sam? I hear the wind. It was a fun way to speak. I didn't feel like I was studying. I felt like I was living in English. After that day, walking and speaking became my habit. Every morning, I went for a walk and talked to myself in English. Sometimes I shadowed my favorite YouTube teachers. Sometimes I made my own sentences. Every day was different, but every day helped me grow. One morning, I saw an old man sitting on a bench. He looked friendly. I smiled and said, Good morning. He said, Good morning, young man. I said, It's a nice day, isn't it? He said, Yes, very nice. The sun feels good today. I said, I come here every morning to walk and practice my English. He smiled and said, That's a good idea. Keep doing it. English is about practice, not perfection. I thanked him. His words stayed in my mind all day. Practice, not perfection. That week, my teacher gave us a new task. She said, You will all prepare a short talk in English. You will speak for 2 minutes in front of the class. The topic is my favorite place. Everyone looked nervous. I felt nervous too, but I also felt excited. I thought, this is my chance. I went home and started writing my talk. I wrote, My favorite place is the park near my house. I go there every morning. I walk, listen to English, and speak to myself. I like the sound of birds and the smell of trees. It makes me calm. It helps me learn. I read it again and again until I could say it without looking at the paper. Then I stood in front of the mirror and practiced. My favorite place is the park near my house. I smiled, used my hands, and spoke with feeling. I wanted to sound natural. The next day, it was my turn to speak in class. My heart beat fast. My teacher said, Sam, you can start. I took a deep breath and began. My favorite place is the park near my house. I go there every morning. My voice was clear. I looked at my classmates and smiled. I forgot my fear. I just spoke. When I finished, everyone clapped. The teacher said, Very good, Sam. You spoke clearly and naturally. I sat down, my hands shaking a little, but I was smiling. I had done it. After class, Monica said, Sam, you sounded great. I can see how much you've improved, I said. Thank you. I practiced many times at home, she said. That's the secret. Practice makes your words flow. I nodded. That night, I sat at my desk and thought about my journey. I remembered the first time I was too afraid to speak. I remembered the mistakes, the small steps, the laughter, and the progress. I realized something very important. Speaking is not about big moments. It's about small, daily moments. When you say good morning to someone, when you describe what you see, when you talk to yourself in the mirror, those are the real moments of growth. The next morning, my teacher said, "Today, let's talk about pronunciation." She played an audio clip. The voice said, "I can do it." Then she said, "Now listen carefully. Notice how the sounds connect. Not I can do it, but I can do it." English sounds join together. That's how native speakers talk. We repeated after her. I can do it. I can see it. I can make it. I realized how the words flow together. It sounded beautiful, like music. After class, I asked her, "Teacher, how can I improve my pronunciation?" She said, "Shadowing. Repeat what you hear. Don't worry about understanding every word. Just copy the rhythm, the sound, the music of English." I said, "I already do that when I walk." She smiled. "Then you're doing the right thing, Sam." That evening, I chose a short video and shadowed the speaker. I repeated every word. You can do it. Don't give up. Keep trying. I said it again and again until it sounded smooth. I recorded myself and compared it to the video. At first it didn't sound the same, but slowly it started to match. I felt proud. A few days later, our teacher gave us another activity. She said, "Let's have conversation pairs today. Choose a partner." Monica came to me and said, "Let's be partners again." I smiled. Of course. The teacher gave us a topic. Describe your weekend. Monica started. On Saturday, I met my cousin. We watched a movie. Then she said, "What about you, Sam?" I said, "On Sunday, I went to the park. I listened to English. I spoke with an old man. He told me something special. Practice, not perfection." She smiled and said, "That's beautiful." Our teacher walked around and listened. She said, "Good conversation, both of you. You sound natural." I felt happy again. Each small success made me want to speak more. That night, I wrote another note in my notebook. Speaking English is not about knowing everything. It's about using what you know every day. Don't wait to be perfect. Start now. Speak now. I looked at those words and whispered them like a promise. Then I turned off the light, closed my eyes, and said quietly in English, "I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm not afraid anymore." The next morning I woke up before sunrise. The sky was still gray, and the air was quiet. I sat near my window with my notebook and whispered, "Good morning, English." It had become my small daily ritual, a peaceful moment to connect with my learning. I opened my notebook and read the last line I wrote. Speak now. Those two words felt powerful. They reminded me that learning English was not about waiting for the right day. It was about using every day. After breakfast, I went to school early. I wanted to practice before class started. I met Leo near the library. He was reading something on his phone. I said, "Hey Leo, what are you reading?" He said, "I'm reading an English short story." I said, "Can we read it together and talk about it?" He smiled. "Sure." We sat on a bench outside. The story was simple, about a boy and his lost dog. We read it slowly, line by line. After every paragraph, we stopped and talked. I asked, "What do you think will happen next?" He said, "I think the boy will find the dog." I said, "I think someone will help him." We laughed and kept reading. When we finished, Leo said, "You know, this was fun." I didn't feel like studying. I said, "Me too." It felt like a real conversation. He said, "That's because it was a real conversation." I smiled. It was true. Speaking didn't need to be a big lesson. It could be small, natural, and fun. When the teacher came, she said, "Today we will practice storytelling." Everyone became curious. She said, "Storytelling is one of the best ways to improve your speaking. You use your imagination, you use your feelings, and you use your words. Don't try to be perfect. Just try to be expressive." She gave us each a picture. Mine was of a rainy street. She said, "Look at the picture for 1 minute. Then tell a short story about it." I looked at the picture carefully. There was a man with an umbrella walking alone. The street lights reflected on the wet road. I took a deep breath and started. It was a rainy night. The man was walking home. He was tired but happy. He liked the sound of the rain. It made him feel calm. When I finished, the teacher said, "Very good, Sam. You used simple words but created a clear picture. That's storytelling." Later, Monica said, "Your story was beautiful." I said, "Thank you." I was nervous, but I just imagined the scene. She said, "That's the secret. When you see, feel, and speak together, your words become natural." I wrote her sentence in my notebook later. See, feel, and speak together. It became another lesson I didn't want to forget. That evening, I decided to continue practicing storytelling alone. I looked around my room and made stories about everything I saw. This cup was once in a faraway shop. One day, I saw it and bought it. I laughed, but I kept going. I made stories about my desk, my book, my shoes, everything. I didn't care if it sounded silly. I was speaking English, and that was enough. The next day, I tried something new. I opened a random picture online and described it aloud. A beach, a city, a mountain, a family dinner. Every picture became a small world of English words. I said, "They are smiling. They are eating together." The sky looks warm. My confidence was growing. At school, our teacher gave us another fun task. She said, "Today we will play a role-play game. You will act like shopkeepers and customers. You must use English, only I was excited. My partner was Monica again. She said, I will be the customer, and you will be the shopkeeper." I said, "Okay, welcome to my shop." She smiled and said, "Good morning." "Do you have any apples?" I said, "Yes, of course. They are very fresh." She said, "How much are they?" I said, £2 per kilo. We both laughed as we continued. When we finished, the teacher said, "Well done. You two sound very natural." After class, I said, "Monica, I think speaking like this helps me a lot." She said, "Yes, because it feels real. You imagine you're in that situation. That makes it easier to remember." I said, "I understand now. English is not something to study. It's something to live." She smiled. Exactly. That evening, I recorded myself again. This time, I pretended I was in a cafe. I said, "Hello, may I have a cup of coffee, please?" Then I answered as if I were the barista. "Sure, one coffee coming up." I changed my voice and laughed. I played the recording and listened. It sounded funny, but real. I noticed how natural my sentences had become. I wasn't translating anymore. My English was flowing like a conversation between two friends. The next day, I had an idea. I wanted to help other students who were shy to speak. I asked my teacher, "Can we make a speaking club after class?" She smiled and said, "That's a wonderful idea, Sam. You can lead it." I felt nervous but excited. After class, I told my friends, "Let's meet every Friday for 30 minutes and talk in English. No books, no grammar, just speaking." Leo said, "Yes, that sounds great." Monica said, "I'm in." On Friday, 5 students came. We sat in a circle. I said, "Let's start with something easy. Introduce yourself and talk about your day." Everyone spoke one by one. At first, we laughed a lot because some people forgot words, but nobody felt embarrassed. We helped each other. When the meeting ended, everyone said, "This was fun." I felt proud. My small idea became something real. Our teacher joined us later and said, "Sam, you have created something beautiful. You are not just learning English now, you are living it and sharing it." Those words made my heart warm. That night, I looked at the city lights again, just like before. But this time, everything felt different. I was not the shy student I used to be. I was someone who could speak, express, and connect. English was no longer just a language I was learning. It was a part of me now. I opened my notebook and wrote my thoughts. Speaking English is like growing a tree. At first, it's small. You must water it every day. You must give it light and time. Slowly, it grows. And one day you look at it and realize it's beautiful. Then I wrote another line under it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Speak now. Speak today. Speak every day. And as I closed my notebook, I whispered to myself, I'm proud of how far I've come. The next morning, I woke up with excitement. I felt ready to try something new. I wanted to speak English with strangers. It was a little scary, but I remembered all my teacher's advice. Practice, not perfection. I took my notebook and went to the small market near my house. When I entered, a man greeted me. "Good morning." I smiled and said, "Good morning." How are you today? He smiled back. I'm fine, thank you. And you? I said, I'm fine too. I am learning English every day. He looked surprised but happy. That's wonderful. Keep going, he said. I thanked him and continued walking through the market. I saw a woman selling fruits. I decided to ask her a question. I said, Excuse me, how much are the bananas? She said, 2 pounds per kilo. I said, Thank you. Can I have 1 kilo, please? She smiled and gave me the bananas. I said, Thank you very much. Have a nice day. She said, You too. I walked away and smiled. I had just spoken English in a real-life situation. It felt amazing. My confidence grew a little more. Later, I went to a cafe. I ordered a coffee. The barista asked, Do you want milk or sugar? I said, Milk, please. No sugar. While waiting, I spoke quietly to myself. I am drinking coffee. It is hot. It tastes good. I like this cafe. When he gave me the coffee, I said, Thank you. He smiled and said, You speak very well. I felt proud and happy. Speaking English was no longer scary. At school, our teacher asked us to do a new activity. She said, Today we will practice asking questions and giving answers quickly. It is called speed conversation. You will have 1 minute with each partner. Speak without thinking too much. Just react naturally. I liked this idea. My first partner was Monica. The timer started. She asked, What did you eat for breakfast? I said quickly, I had bread and tea. She asked, Do you like tea or coffee? I said, I like tea more. She asked, What do you do after school? I said, I practice English, walk, and speak to myself. The timer rang. We laughed. It was fast but fun. The next partner was Leo. He asked, Where do you want to travel? I said, I want to visit Scotland and see mountains. He asked, Do you like summer or winter? I said, I like summer, but winter is beautiful too. He asked, What is your favorite hobby? I said, My favorite hobby is speaking English and reading. The timer rang again. My heart was beating fast, but I felt alive. After class, the teacher said, Sam, you are doing very well. You are thinking in English more now. You don't translate anymore. Your brain is starting to work in English. I smiled. It felt like a reward. That evening, I decided to combine my favorite techniques. I sat in my room and recorded myself speaking about my day. I said, Today I went to the market. I talked to the man at the entrance. I bought bananas. I drank coffee. I practiced speed conversation at school. I feel happy because I spoke a lot. I listened to the recording. I noticed my pauses were shorter. My sentences were smoother. I felt proud. Then I tried thinking aloud again. I spoke about small things in my room. I see my desk. My notebook is on the desk. My pen is blue. I like writing in blue. I open my book. I read a story. It is interesting. I understand most words. I smiled. This simple method made my English feel alive. The next week I had another opportunity. I went to the park again and saw some tourists. I gathered courage and said, Hello, Where are you from? They said, We are from Spain. I said, Nice. Do you like London? They said, Yes, it is beautiful. I said, I am learning English. I want to speak well. They said, You speak very well. I felt proud. Speaking with strangers made my English real. At school, the teacher explained another tip. Use English for real tasks. Don't just practice alone. Speak when you order food, buy something, ask directions, or give information. This makes your learning practical and fast. I realized this was true. Every real conversation helped me more than studying rules. That night, I made a plan. I would practice speaking every day with strangers, friends, and myself. I would continue shadowing videos, thinking aloud, and storytelling. I would also record myself. Each day, I would speak at least 10 minutes with someone else and 10 minutes alone. I wrote in my notebook, consistency is key. The next day, I tried speaking to the bus driver. I said, Good morning. Does this bus go to King Street? He said, Yes, it does. I said, Thank you. I felt happy. My teacher's advice was working. Real situations made my speaking faster and more natural. After school, I met Monica and Leo. I said, Let's practice small talk in the park. We walked and talked about our hobbies, our favorite movies, and our plans. Sometimes we laughed, sometimes we corrected each other. It was fun. I realized that speaking English could be part of life, not just school. That evening I recorded one last thing. I spoke about my week. I spoke to a bus driver. I spoke to tourists. I practiced storytelling. I recorded myself. I practiced thinking aloud. I met friends. I spoke every day. My English is growing. I feel confident. I am happy I listened and smiled. My voice was stronger, smoother, and more natural than before. I wrote in my notebook, Speaking English is a journey. You grow slowly, but every day counts. Mistakes are normal. Fear is normal. Confidence grows with practice. Speak every day, speak everywhere, speak with joy. Before going to sleep, I whispered, I am Sam. I speak English. I practice every day. I enjoy learning. I am proud of myself. And with that thought, I closed my eyes, ready to wake up and speak again tomorrow.